Hey, party people. I'm sorry. Hi, guys. Kia ora, whakalofa and welcome back to this week's podcast episode, which I'm so excited to get into. And I know I say that every time, but this one I put out to the peeps. I asked you guys over on Instagram. I had DMs of people messaging me and being like, they saw my posts of me editing podcasts and was like, it's my sign from the universe. Shout out to my girl Ashley. I know you're listening right now, so thank you, sis, for being here. It's my sign to start a podcast. So, how do you start a podcast, sis? And then I put it out to the peeps, and I asked you guys, do you guys want to know? And I had a lot of feedback saying, yes, we want to know how to start a podcast. So here it is, y'all. And I want to preface this by saying this is not the be all end all. This is literally how I started my podcast, and I think there's different ways to do it, and you can pay people and hire people and all the things, but this is me learning on my own how to do it. And I literally learned off YouTube and listening to other people. And shout out to my coach, Erica. I heard her say that she started on Anchor, so I looked up Anchor and was like, oh cool, I could just start recording off here kind of thing. So yeah, this was how I figured it out kind of on my own, and it's worked for me. I obviously have my podcast. You're listening to it right now, so thank you. I love you. Thank you so much for listening. We've hit 25 countries, thousands of downloads. And I'm going to talk more about that as well. Welcome to the podcast episode, How to Start a Podcast. And first things first, I think it's very important to write down why, like, what's the purpose, what's the reason, what's your mission, what's your vision, what's the purpose, why are you doing this in the first place? For me, it was, I could help people. I guess, with my coaching work that I do, I already noticed that I was helping people by sharing my stories and things like that, and the lessons that I've learned in life. And it was kind of, as I started it was like, I want to kind of just document things that I've been through in life that can kind of give women or whoever's listening to this a heads up that, instead of you having to make the same mistakes that I made, here's your kind of big sister. I think about my little sisters. Here's your big sister telling you what she's done in the past and it didn't work. So learn from this so that you don't have to go through the lessons yourself and go through the pain and the trauma and all the things. I mean, if you go through it, obviously it's meant to be, that's what you're supposed to go through. But it was kind of like, hey, just a heads up, like this is what has kind of happened. And I think over time it's kind of moved into, obviously it's still life lessons with Leash. I share a lot of my lessons, but it's moved more into coaching side of things where I share how to do certain things and what I've learned through my personal development journey, through my life lessons, what I've learned through the studies that I've done to become a life coach, all the things. That's kind of how it's evolved, but it's really, the vision is to help women, to help women to answer questions, to give different perspectives, to help them with their personal development and with their confidence and body image and, all the things, right? So I think it's really important to, like, what's the purpose? What is it about? And really find something that you can kind of niche on, whatever the topic is, but something you're knowledgeable and passionate about. And I think the passion needs to be there because, a podcast is, you're showing up every week. It's not easy. You're sitting down, you're writing out what you're going to talk about, you're posting it online, you're editing, you're talking for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40, 50, whatever. Maybe if you want guests on as well, you have to, kind of sync it up with them and, write down, like, there's a lot of work that goes into it, especially when it's weekly as well. So you need to be passionate about it. Otherwise, it's just, you're not going to keep showing up if you don't really give a fuck about what you're talking about. So really finding that passion and something you're knowledgeable about, something, I guess that people kind of know you for. For example, with me, people started learning about me online and things that I'd been through and stuff like that. So I already had kind of built up, my social media platforms or communities, right? So people kind of knew what I was about and then came to me for, things that I spoke about, whether it be, self doubt, confidence, loving what you see in the mirror, talking about trauma and, all the things, personal development, right? So yeah, I think also sitting out, like there's a lot of planning that you'll have to do in the start. Are you going to show up weekly or twice a week, or what is it going to be? And I would recommend to show up, weekly, because I think if I think about how I think about podcasts, if people aren't showing up consistently weekly, then I kind of tune out a little bit, because I'm not really, we want that consistency, that know, like, and trust from the person. So all my favorite podcasts, they show up weekly, some even twice a week, which I think I've heard is really good for engagement and stuff like that. So thinking about how often you're gonna show up, and what the theme of your podcast is, and all the things, and the logo and the name and stuff like that. So you've got to plan all that stuff out. But those are the main things. And a lot of the stuff that I did is I kind of put it out to my community. I asked them, like, oh, I'm thinking of starting a podcast. Would you listen? What would you like to hear? Would you like it with me, or would you like guests on? Do you think the name should be? How long the episode should be? Like stuff like that. So I actually put it out to my community and was like, what do you guys think? And kind of took on board what they thought and then mixed in what I thought, and then kind of made it happen. And over time, you'll change things and stuff like that. And I think I've changed things along the way as well. And kind of you see what works. You see maybe when you have podcasts with guests, that you get more listens, or when it's on your own, you get more listens, or when you talk about certain topics, you get more listens, stuff like that. So then you can start adapting and stuff. But one of the biggest questions I get when it comes to starting a podcast is in terms of equipment. And I did a lot of research on equipment when it came to microphones and stuff like that. I watched a lot of YouTube videos where they would compare the microphones and stuff like that. And the one that I found that was, best quality in terms of sound and stuff like that, you can obviously hear the sound because I'm using it right now, and the price. So those were obviously, you want really, really good sound, because nobody's going to listen to a shitty podcast. And you probably listened to some of mine in the early days where I was trying to figure out sound that it doesn't sound, as good, right? So the one that I use is called it's a Samson Q2U, and it was $120 from Officeworks. And don't worry if you don't get all of this, I'm going to link everything in the show notes below, so you can go check that out and cop yourself one. But I found that it's really, really good. It does the job. There are other, ones that people use and stuff like that, but I think, they're definitely more expensive. And I did this more on a budget, I feel like, for the podcast. But if you want, you can obviously get whatever you like. But I found that this was the cheapest and the best quality for what it was. I also was using the Otto when I was interviewing guests in person. I have two Otto mics. I think they're like $30 each from Officeworks as well, and I don't really mind those are all good, I reckon. So if you are really, really on a budget, just grab one of those, grab an Otto from Officeworks. It'll do the trick. And then as you go, you can upgrade and stuff like that. In terms of visuals, I didn't start doing visuals from the start, but visuals I think really, really help. And it's good for, getting your podcast out on social media and stuff like that. You can show little clips of your visuals. So I just record it off my vlogging camera. I bought this camera to start vlogging. It's the Canon EOS M50. And this camera, I think it was like over $1,000 with all of, the memory card, the stand, the lenses, all that kind of stuff. And it was an investment that me and Metz actually did in my early days of So Extra and when I decided to start vlogging. I'm sure there's things like Afterpay and stuff like that that you could probably do as well. But I mean, if you're just starting out and you don't have kind of the equipment to do all these things, I would recommend to do it over. There is Zoom, so sometimes I would do it on Zoom. The quality is not as good. That's why I use my camera, because the quality is so good. But I was doing it on Zoom for a little bit, so you could do that. You could even just prop your phone up and use your phone quality. Usually, a lot of people have their Apple or their smartphones, so just record yourself on your smartphone, and then I'll also talk about how you edit it to make sure that it's this voice quality but that camera quality. So using your phone, I feel like you can totally do as well. Just put it on a stand and record yourself and talk to the phone as the camera. So there's no excuses. Like, you just make it happen, right? And I think that's also one of my piece of advice would pieces yeah piece of, and my advice would be to just like do the damn thing, because sometimes we wait for everything to be perfect, and yeah, we want everything to be perfect, but I'm like, no, let's do progress over perfection, right? Let's do something. Let's not hold yourself back from starting the podcast that may help millions of women, or even one woman. Don't stop yourself, or man, whatever, right? Don't stop yourself from doing that and going for your goals and dreams, because you don't have the Canon EOS M50 camera, right? Just make it work. Use your phone. If you can't afford this microphone, get the Otto. Do it on your phone video. Sometimes it's really good, actually. The platform I'm going to tell you about that I use to upload my podcast and stuff like that, they've updated their microphone on the phone, so you could even do it off that. So there's no excuses here. So the platform I use is called, well, it was called Anchor. Now it's called Shopify. No, not Shopify, Spotify. Spotify for podcasters. And that has it all. You literally go download it, you literally open it up and you hit record, and then you put it into create an episode. You put in the title, you put in what it's about and all the things. And on Anchor as well, or Spotify for podcasts, you can actually, there's what instructions on it as well, but it's like a RSS, and you upload that to Apple and to, I think it automatically does Spotify, but to all the other platforms, so that your podcast goes out to all those platforms. So it's literally so easy. It's free, and it does everything on there, and you record everything off there. And if you don't have a microphone, you can literally record on there, and use their microphone, because it's really, really good on there. So the platform that you want to start recording on is Anchor or Spotify for podcasters. Even if you type in Anchor, I think it sends you to Spotify for podcasters. In terms of editing, I just use iMovie. So I take, obviously, the video, the video, and put it into iMovie, and then I take the audio and put it into iMovie and I sync it up, and then obviously I turn off the audio from the video and then sync on the audio. So that's how the audio is crisp and clear, and then the video is crisp and clear as well. Some of these things, it's kind of, you just have to start opening up these things and playing around with it and getting to know it and all the things, and it won't take you long. We are very tech savvy. Well, I am as a person. I feel like tech savvy in a sense that if I open something up, give me 30 minutes and let me just have a whirl and get around it. And these are the things that you kind of have to do if you want to do something. If you want to start a podcast, whatever it is you're trying to do, you have to do these little things. And if you aren't tech savvy, type into Apple how to use iMovie. There's basic things, how to use Anchor, Spotify for podcasts, all the things. There's little tutorials. There's everything is online, so you can make it happen. In terms of the intro and outro to podcasts, I literally just recorded it on Anchor, and then I searched free music download, and then just took the free music download that I found online and went into iMovie and synced the two up. And yeah, did it as a backing, like put the volume down for the backing track and stuff like that. So you could totally do that and figure that out on iMovie. And in terms of your podcast, when you first release it, I would recommend to have 3 to 5 podcast episodes ready. Well, I'd say 3 podcast episodes ready for people to kind of like listen one after another, like binge listen. So have 3 podcasts ready to go, and then also have podcasts backed up so that you not every week you're kind of chasing to do a podcast every week. Back it up. Like when you first start, I would even say to have like 5 podcasts extra ready. So you're 5 weeks in advance, and then you're recording 5 weeks in advance so that you're not always trying to, do a podcast every week and, kind of running around trying to find an idea and what should I talk about and all the things, right? You've got to be prepared. So that's just my little piece of advice. In terms of the cover art that I have or the logo I have for my podcast, I just made it on Canva. If you go on Canva and search in podcast covers or whatever, whatever it is, literally so many will come up. Put a photo of yourself, edit it yourself, do all the things. I've changed mine a few times as well. So yeah, don't get too caught up on that. Don't not release it because you just don't have the cover art. It's like, just do it. What you can now, put it out there and then upgrade over time. Just do something, just put it out there and make it happen. Obviously you want to promote it on your social media. So on your YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all the things, promote it on there. I also upload all the episodes onto my YouTube as well because people watch on there. And then you want to upload snippets to Instagram, Facebook, all those kinds of things. And there's actually a really cool tool. It's called Video AI. I'll also put that in the show notes. And you can upload your podcast visuals on there, and then it breaks it up into little snippets. And then you can just post those snippets. It has the little subtitles. You've probably seen it online if you've seen my podcasts. So yeah, you can use that as well. But even when, you're promoting it on social media and stuff like that, ask your audience, for feedback. Ask them what they think. Ask them, I would ask my community, and when I first started, they were like, oh, the audio's not that good and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, working on it. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's happening. Sometimes my mics wasn't connecting. I didn't know that I had to like connect my mic in the settings. I thought it just like kind of automatically did it. So that was my bad. So just stuff like that. Obviously, you want to respond to all the comments that come up. You can ask people, what do you want to hear on the podcast? What are you loving? What don't you love? Is there anything you want me to talk about? But I think consistency is definitely key to consistently show up. Some people do seasons, so they'll do season 1, season 2, season 3. But just make sure your podcast listeners are aware and they're not waiting for podcasts and you're just not dropping them. And they're like, wait, when's the podcast coming back? I don't know. Is she still doing it? What's going on? Just make sure they're kept in the loop that you're doing it weekly or twice weekly or every second week or whatever it is, right? And lastly, I think I want to close on just being patient and having, being persistent and being patient with it. Sometimes it's not an overnight success. Sometimes it's over time. Might be years before you get, maybe 1,000 listeners or 1,000 downloads or 100 downloads or 2,000 or 5,000 or whatever. But keep going. And I think that links into thinking about why you're doing it. What's the purpose? What's the mission? All that, because at the end of the day, maybe when you only get 1 listener or you get 5 listeners, it's like, I'm going to keep going for those 5 listeners. And so my podcasts drop every Tuesday at 5 a.m. and I'll wake up and there's always the same 5 listeners that always listen to it, but before I've woken up, I log on, I'm like, oh, cool, they've already listened, kind of thing. And that might not seem like much for some, but I'm so grateful that, even if it's just one person, and, I get DMs all the time. I just got a DM this morning talking about, that one of the ladies, she always listens when she's cooking and cleaning, and it's her favorite podcast to listen to. And I'm just like, blessed. Like, these are the reasons why I do it. And not only that, it actually helps me to get this stuff out, out of my mouth and into, and I love talking about it. And we are so knowledgeable. There's so much that people can learn from one another. I'm sure there's so much I could learn from you as well. So, sometimes like, oh, podcast, everyone has a podcast. There's stupid people listening and talking and stuff like that. Don't listen to them if you don't value what they're saying. But on top of that, there's millions and there's so many amazing people that are sharing their knowledge, their wisdom, and they're creating change in the world, and they're helping people's lives, and they're doing amazing things, and they're putting perspectives out there, and they're opening people's minds to different things, and all of that. And I think that's what I really love about podcasts. I love that you can just type in and write in self-doubt or confidence or trauma or parent trauma or stuff like that, and a podcast can come up and somebody will be talking about it, and then it's up to you to be like, I like this person or I don't like this person, I'm going to move on, kind of thing. But I think if you're thinking of starting a podcast, please start it, because obviously there's something that you need to share or that you want to share. And sometimes it won't be, like for me, mine's all about personal development. Yours might be something else. It might be, there's so many podcasts out there. There's funny ones. There's people talking about like pop culture. Me and Mets, we listen to The Morning Shift, and it's just like the guys are just having fun, and it's just relatable, and it's banter. And sometimes you don't want to be talking about personal development and stuff like that. So whatever you have to share, there's definitely space for it. And I would really, really encourage you to do it and to make it happen. But if you have any extra questions, if you need any extra help with anything, this was kind of just a gloss over quickly from the top of my head what you should kind of have when it comes to a podcast. But if there's anything extra that you want, please DM me on Instagram at soextra__. Get in touch. I'll be happy to help as always. But thank you so much for your time. Thanks for listening. You're the best. I love you. Ka kite. Koikia.